Oi, gente! Welcome back! So I decided to learn Brazilian Portuguese in 2020. I knew nothing about Portuguese or Brazil. So in this video, I'm going to share how I learned on my own as a beginner, what my current daily routine is now that I have a higher level, and at the end of the video, I'm going to speak in Portuguese. So when I started as a beginner, my initial strategy was to build the base of the language and have input or listening and reading at the same time every day, or most days. I learned grammar from YouTube channels, websites, and forums, just looking for the basic grammar topics that I needed to learn. I started learning all of the verb conjugations from the start. So I simplified and organized all of the verb tenses and conjugations in my notes. And I also found a chart organizing all of the verb endings for regular verbs, which just helped me have everything simplified in one place. And I practiced forming sentences, picturing or imagining myself doing the verb. Like, I speak, eu falo. I spoke, eu falei. It's not enough to learn grammar without context, so I watched short YouTube videos every day with subtitles, with people who spoke slowly. I watched some Netflix shows with double subtitles in Portuguese and English. And I paid attention, like, there's that verb conjugation. I learned vocabulary with digital flashcards and lists. I didn't learn vocabulary for beginners like colors, how to order at a restaurant, things in your house, because I don't use that stuff. So I focused more on vocabulary for daily conversations like phrases, always, as long as. I got really lucky and I made a friend immediately on HelloTalk. It's really hard to make friends on HelloTalk, but also in life. And we texted most days for half of the year. So I practiced writing with him as I learned more and more. For pronunciation, I took a free mini course, and that changed everything because before I was just reading in a Spanish accent. And as I learned more and more, I started speaking to myself, and I would look up the conjugations or phrases or verb tenses as I was speaking. I sometimes spoke to Brazilians on Limpe, which is a phone call app, and Omegle. I don't recommend Omegle. I saw parts of Brazil I didn't want to see. I learned some vocabulary I didn't want to learn in Portuguese. But I actually had a few really good long conversations there. So that was more or less how I reached an intermediate level. It was obviously easier because I knew Spanish, but it wasn't easy or fast. I think I dedicated between 1 to 3 hours most days, but I don't remember. It was random. I always forget this chair is a rocking chair. So I think I'm gonna fall back and die. There are 3 things that I think are a priority at an intermediate, upper intermediate, advanced level. Listening, speaking, and vocabulary, which has 2 parts: learning new vocabulary and reviewing old vocabulary. My routine is making sure I listen and speak most days, even if it's listening for 10 minutes and speaking for 5 minutes. And I try to work on vocabulary weekly, but I've been very lazy about this. I don't like strict routines like,
every morning at 8:30, I listen for 45 minutes. Then I take notes for 5 minutes.
It doesn't work for me. So I prefer to be flexible, but focus on practicing the important skills. So how do I do these 3 things in detail? For listening, I choose content that I'm actually personally interested in, mainly YouTube, and I have a separate Instagram account, where I follow Portuguese speakers who post videos, because Instagram lets you put captions on videos. And if I have more energy and motivation, I actively engage and interact with the content. So pausing to notice new phrases, repeating those phrases out loud multiple times. You can do this with my videos. Writing down the phrases if I think I'm going to use them in the future. Shadowing. I also like to read the comments under the videos and see the drama. Drama keeps me entertained. And I also sometimes watch the same video or listen to the same podcast multiple times. Speaking! I speak and think to myself alone in Portuguese most days. This is super easy for me because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. Sometimes I watch YouTube videos and speak my opinion out loud in Portuguese. And it's a great way to learn vocabulary and conjugations because you can look them up in the moment or write down when you don't know how to say something to ask someone later. The second way that I practice speaking is with a tutor on italki. We've been Skyping once a week for a few months and he gives me corrections. On occasion, I'll talk to other Brazilians, but I mostly use a tutor and talk to myself. I've noticed that reviewing vocabulary several times in the future makes a huge difference in how much I remember phrases because I have a terrible memory, but I'm just so lazy. But when I do review vocabulary, I try to use recall, which means I see the word in English and then I have to think of the word in Portuguese. So it's forcing you to think of the phrase and practice forming it in your head. So flashcards help with that. And I use some vocabulary memorization tricks too, like repeating them out loud several times. So listening, speaking, and vocabulary are the main priorities, but I also do other stuff. I write in my journal in Portuguese, I text with my Brazilian friend, I read articles sometimes in Portuguese. Sometimes I look up a new grammar concept, but not as much as before. Oi, pessoal! Agora vou falar em português. Na questão da minha fluência, às vezes falo com pessoas muito rápido e até eu fico surpresa, mas às vezes tento falar e é tipo, não consigo pensar nas palavras e então depende do tema, dos meus nervos, do dia e não penso muito nisso, falo fluente ou não? Não é importante para mim. Esses termos são bastante vagos e subjetivos. O meu objetivo desde o primeiro dia foi falar. Já vi algumas pessoas dizer que é fácil aprender português e espanhol porque são tão similares. E é verdade, toda vez que não sei uma palavra em português, digo a palavra em espanhol, com sotaque brasileiro. E dá certo, 50% do tempo. Sempre me sinto como um gênio. E obviamente isso não vai acontecer com o japonês. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, tive muita dificuldade lembrando das diferenças. Porque lembro que toda vez que aprendi uma nova frase ou uma nova palavra em português, imediatamente esqueci como se diz em espanhol. Por muito tempo, meu espanhol piorou. E fiquei Agora não falo nenhum dos idiomas, porque tem milhares de diferenças pequenas, tipo pandemia, pandemia, diferença, diferença, escrever, escrever. Gente, e não vou começar com as conjugações, que também são muito similares. Mas quando as pessoas dizem
É fácil, é basicamente o mesmo idioma.
não, meu anjo, você provavelmente tá falando portunhol. Você criou um novo idioma. Agora é muito mais fácil para mim separar os idiomas e acho que é porque falo todo dia. E porque repetia muito, tipo, diferença, 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 diferença. Presto atenção a essas diferenças. Não falo perfeitamente, mas isso é bom, porque significa que tenho potencial para progredir no futuro. Não é sobre a perfeição e realmente tive que lembrar disso nos últimos meses, porque não tenho tido tanta motivação quanto antes. E sei que se tivesse mais energia, se tivesse mais tempo, então poderia passar mais tempo todo dia praticando, estudando. Mas não dá pra fazer com tudo que tá acontecendo na minha vida e sinto que tô passando por uma fase onde não me sinto tão dedicada e me senti mal ao início, mas agora entendo que é normal e vou ter mais motivação no futuro e o mais importante é manter constância. É isso, gente! Já falei demais, então obrigada por assistirem. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.